So here we are covering Chapter 7 for AP Biology. We are doing photosynthesis. This lecture is going to focus strictly on the light reactions, or the reactions that require sunlight to occur. Previously, we did an overview of photosynthesis and how plants are autotrophs, how plant algae and some bacteria are able to produce their own food using a process of photosynthesis. We talked about how photosynthesis is a redox reaction, which means certain molecules are being reduced, some molecules are being oxidized, and all in all, it is a two-part process. The two stages are going to be linked by the energy molecules ATP and NADPH. So the first set of reactions that we're going to focus on are the light reactions, and that's the topic of this video. So what the light reactions are doing is they are converting light energy into chemical energy, and in doing so they're producing oxygen. So here is our water is going to come into our light reactions, which will occur in the thylakoid membranes of a chloroplast inside of our cell, and we'll be producing our oxygen molecules at this point in time. Again, the light reactions require sunlight in order to occur. What comes out of the light reactions is the ATP and the NADPH molecules, which will then enter the Calvin cycle, which is where we're going to use our carbon dioxide and we're ultimately going to be producing our sugar. So let's focus on those light reactions. The light reactions are going to be using sunlight, and light operates on an insane spectrum. So there's gamma rays, X-rays, UV rays, then there's the visible light spectrum that we know of, then there's infrared and microwaves and radio waves and all of those things. The idea is that the visible light is what is going to be driving the light reactions, and we are specifically looking at types of wavelengths within the visible light. And if we look at where the kind of the spectrum is that we're going to be focusing on, it's kind of in this area where there's the orange-red spectrum. The spectrum of light that we do not like for photosynthesis is actually going to be the green light, which is why things look green, because that's the light wave that's being rejected or pushed back. Now, what is it that actually does the using the sunlight? There is a partial structure that is found within the thylakoid membrane of a chloroplast, and it is called a photosystem. Photosystems are what will absorb the energy from sunlight and exciting the electron. The electron is coming from water. Now, what does a photosystem look like? Well, photosystems are made up of kind of two major parts. Number one is the light harvesting complexes, so it's full of these protein pigments that are called chlorophyll, and that's where that green color is coming from. So what happens is a chlorophyll pigment molecule absorbs the energy from sunlight, and in doing so, it eventually will transfer that energy to other pigments until ultimately we transfer the energy to the second part of a photosystem, which is called the reaction center. The reaction center is where the electron gets all of the energy from sunlight and becomes very excited. And it actually will bounce or jump and be donated to our first protein that's found in the thylakoid membrane. So again, a photosystem is made of two parts: the light harvesting pigments, which is mainly our chlorophyll, and then in the center of that is the reaction center, and that's where all of that energy comes in and gets transferred and given to the electron that we've taken from water. Now, the light reactions are going to ultimately generate the ATP and the NADPH. In order to do this, to generate these molecules, we need to absorb enough energy from the sunlight. And in order to do that, we're going to need two different photosystems. The first photosystem is our P700, so that's the wavelength that it's going to be absorbing. And the second one is the P680. Again, that's the light that it's absorbing. Now, okay, that was the bell. Sorry about that. So what happens? Here's our light harvesting complex, our photosystem. Here's each of those chlorophyll molecules absorbing sunlight, transferring the energy, building it up until ultimately it's given to our electron. Our electron becomes highly excited. And then this is our P680. The electron becomes excited where it's going to be donated to our very first electron or protein in the electron transport chain. The thing about this is, where did that electron come from? Water. And in breaking apart our water, as we previously discussed, that oxygen will now turn into the oxygen gas that's being released or produced from photosynthesis. So here we've used our first reactant and made our first product. Now the electron itself is traveling through the electron transport chain. As it does so, it loses energy until it eventually becomes re-excited by our second photosystem. Now you'll notice in this diagram that the first photosystem we encounter is known as photosystem 2. And the second photosystem we encounter is known as photosystem 1. It's important to keep the naming correct. So here we are at photosystem 1, our P700 wavelength. Our electron becomes excited once again. Now that electron is going to be donated to NADP plus to reduce it so that we're able to make NADPH, our electron carrier. Now, what happens as the electron goes from photosystem 2 to photosystem 1, it's actually going to be generating the potential energy needed to make ATP. And how does it do that? Well, it creates a concentration gradient. And as we've previously learned, concentration gradients are nothing more than potential energy. And then again, that electron is also going to be given to NADP plus to reduce it to NADPH. So let's make our ATP. Again, when we have our photosystem 2, what are we doing? We're getting that electron from water, and we're going to be producing oxygen gas. Now, how do we make ATP? It's through a process called chemiosmosis, and we're going to be synthesizing or making ATP. So ATP synthesis is how you make ATP, and what's going to be happening is as the electron travels through the electron transport chain, hydrogen ions that have been taken from the water are going to be pumped into that inner thylakoid space and building up as a high concentration there. So here we have our water molecule. We're taking away the hydrogen ions. Here they are. What we're going to do is we're going to be pumping them. We're going to be pumping them into the thylakoid space. Now we have a high concentration of hydrogen ions in the thylakoid space. They want to diffuse back out into the stroma of the chloroplast. In order to do that, they're going to have to travel through our ATP synthase enzyme molecule right here. And when they travel through that, it allows us to lower the activation energy and form the bond between ADP and a phosphate. And in doing so, we generate ATP. So we have previously donated our electron to make NADPH, and now we've used our hydrogen ion concentration to make ATP. These are the two molecules that we need to connect our light reactions to our Calvin cycle, which will be the topic of our next video.